welcome everybody, I think, and to our next St. Patrick's Day WestGrid Town Hall. Hope everybody's thinking about celebrating a bit. It's pretty exciting for us right now because, of course, we're just getting into that time when we're going to take delivery of the new systems, get them up and running, do the actual migration from some of the legacy systems. We've got some really nice updates about keeping some of those legacy systems going while we wait for the new systems. Yeah, and changes are coming really fast and furious there for the last month or so as we've been working with institutions, working with vendors, getting updates from the site teams, all that kind of thing. I think as you probably all know already, we're attempting to be as sort of open as we can, and whenever we know something, we put it out. And I think you've probably seen that lately, and sometimes a day or two later we have to put out a correction because something has changed. But kind of bear with us on that line. We're trying to keep everybody as up to date and informed as we can, and make sure you're all aware of what's going on and where we're going to go. And of course, that's part of these WestGrid town halls to keep everybody informed. Of course, the good thing right now, everything is coming together. This is the next couple of months are going to be really, really busy as we work through the new allocations, the new systems, the migrations. It's going to be fun. Right, so today I'm going to go through updates for the new systems, our usual stuff, and talk a bit more about migration. Again, that's all the kind of thing that's at the top of our minds. A final decommissioning update from the silo team. That's essentially done, but we'll get all the numbers and stats, and then some updates from the national systems from the resource allocation and such. So I think we can go to the next slide, which is just a bit of admin stuff. So the web stream, you can email info, or with video, I think as Aaron has already mentioned, please mute, and if you want to ask questions, you can unmute and ask directly. Just break right in, or use the video chat. Yeah, cool. So I'm Patrick Mann. I'm the Director of Operations for WestGrid, and I'm going to start off and then hand over to some of the others in the team. So first off, our usual quick update on where all the new systems are going. As you know, the cloud Arbutus is up and running, 7,600 cores. So there's only one update there, and that's the Ceph storage system that's attached to the cloud is being expanded. I think it's just about finished. And I see Ryan is there. Ryan, you can wave. He's the team lead at Victoria and is in charge of installing the Arbutus cloud. Just in case, Ceph, that's the virtual disks system. So when you start up a VM and you have a virtual drive, a virtual disk attached to it, then Ceph is the thing that provides that. I will also mention that in the resource allocation process, this is turning out to be our single largest issue, is that we don't have enough Ceph virtual disk storage for the number of requests. And we're still in the final stages of looking through those and trying to figure out which ones we have to cut down a bit so that we can fit it all onto the available storage. So that's really our biggest issue this year. Yeah, we'll have a bit more about that later on. So Cedar, remember Cedar is the general purpose machine, the big general purpose machine with something on the order of 25 or 30,000 cores. That's at SFU, and the racks and servers are all installed, and cabling is in process. So the mid-April date seems quite reasonable as a target for getting that up and running. We're kind of saying a pessimistic date now is the end of April, but we're pretty confident. So it's nice to see Cedar coming together. The Graham machine, that's the GP3, that's at Waterloo, a very similar machine. Fundamentally, it's running maybe a couple of weeks behind Cedar. So their issue was a whole bunch of renovations that needed to be done on the on the data center. Those have been complete. They're taking delivery right now. So I say maybe a couple of weeks behind Graham. So we're not actually giving you a precise date yet. We still have to, the vendors still have to do their acceptance testing, and we have to accept the systems at that point. So I suppose that's the risk, that something might go wrong in that, but everybody seems pretty confident at that point. There are a number of the sort of ancillary supporting RFPs. The network RFP, the master agreements are being signed, and just to tell you, those master agreements are the things that cause us a lot of issues, because these are multi-institution RFPs, national RFPs. So you start having to get multiple VPs signing off on the master agreements, and that always takes a while. So even the network stuff is in the middle of that. This shouldn't affect Cedar, Graham, Arbutus. Those guys can come up with some of the existing network equipment, even if they might not be as flexible. The part that wouldn't come up would be the big object storage service, which I talked about, I think, a couple of meetings ago, a couple of town halls ago. So the network guys are working really hard, because I mentioned that Arbutus has the issue with storage. The right place for a number of these platforms and portals that we're seeing asking for large amounts of storage would be the object store service. Again, that one's really a bit in the future, up in the air, and we'll get there. But for us, anyhow, that network, we need to get that done. There are also some details about partitioning out networks that we can't do, but they say shouldn't affect Cedar and Graham right now. Parallel file system, of course, we want all the file systems attached to the big clusters. That's done. It's available, ready to go as soon as the clusters themselves get installed. And there's a strong scheduler group led by WestGrid folks mostly, and how that scheduling is going to change. Notice I put open source Slurm, so that's different from the existing systems. We're using Moab and Torque right now. So they're looking through all the details, taking training, and working on policies, how the scheduler will handle the jobs submitted. And there will be some documentation coming out pretty soon on the docs.computecanada.ca wiki. And then, if you remember, there is the huge, large parallel system that's going in Toronto, and the expert review panels back a year ago recommended that we wait a little while for that one because of the new Intel chips and such that are coming out. But the RFP has been issued. The site visits are happening this week in Toronto. The RFP closes April 24th. So I think that's sort of on track for getting this, and the estimates are around about 60,000 cores in a very large parallel system. So that's our sort of extra. It's going to be really, really nice to get that, and to start moving some of these big parallel users onto that machine. Yeah, so there's compute stuff, and next is storage. Silo Interim. So the silo migration is complete, and we'll hear more about that from the USAS site lead in a couple of minutes. The National Data Cyber Infrastructure, that's the NDC. There are two major installations at SFU and Waterloo, and they're both going along quite nicely. Waterloo is actually had delivery of 13 petabytes, so big systems here, and I think it's 10 petabytes at SFU, just waiting for delivery. So Waterloo, in this sense, should be up a bit earlier than SFU. And remember, this is kind of replacement for Silo. It's that extra storage sitting on the side where you can archive, put inactive files, all that kind of thing. And it's fully backed up to tape. The tape is already in, so that's going to be a pretty impressive system for that kind of very large data storage. Then the object storage, I mentioned, lots of demand, but we're not allocating it because this was very new to us. Somewhere in the summer, we're expecting object storage to come up. and we'll be putting a pretty big effort into trying to get folks to move on to the object storage. And that's these big platforms and portals where fundamentally there's a whole ton of experimental or observational data sitting out there, and you want to give it to users or analyze it, whatever. And something like in the object store is perfect for that. And then, of course, we've got lots and lots of scratch space attached to the big clusters, and that's all getting installed with the clusters. Okay, so there we are. There's the basics of where things are happening. And just keep in mind the sort of mid-April, end of April dates, maybe early May for the two new general purpose machines. Of course, in previous town halls, we mentioned the fact that this causes us issues because our legacy systems are scheduled or have been scheduled for defunding on March 31st, so in 2 weeks' time. And at least a month ago, we were very worried because we didn't think we'd have any place to put users, that the new systems wouldn't be up and running yet. So I'm really pleased to say that all the defunded systems are now going to continue to give us an overlap period to wait for the new systems to come online. And I really want to thank University of Victoria, University of Calgary, and University of Alberta. They have to shoulder some extra costs for power and such to keep these systems going, and they're the ones who have agreed to do so. And so this has been great news, and we really appreciate it, because if we didn't have this, we'd be panicking. So dates: Hermes and Nestor in Victoria. We thought that these guys were going to go March 31st. They're going to keep going until June 1st. So assuming that Graham and Cedar, the new machines, come up at the end of April, maybe early May, this gives us a good 3 weeks, a month, something like that for the migration. So that's great stuff there. Calgary going to keep going until August 31st. And Edmonton until U of A, and Hungaby and Jasper until October 1st. So, absolutely great news. We've got time for users to move data, to get used to the new systems before defunding the old systems. Just note that we can't keep data on these machines, and certainly for privacy and such, we can't keep data for long term. So. It will be user responsibilities to get their data off these machines and onto the new systems before these defunding dates. So as soon as the machine comes up, and we'll send out announcements and emails and such, you should, if possible, immediately start to at least get your important data off. And as usual, if you really have some very important data, you might want to even think about getting it onto your own laptops or your own storage devices, if you can do so, just to make sure there are multiple copies. It's a bad thing when we get somebody asking if we happen to have a backup of their thesis because they just removed it accidentally. Yeah, don't do that. Okay, so here's a quick slide of the migration schedule. We're expecting the rack letters to get out shortly, next week, if all goes well, and we'll have more to say about that. The rack 2016s, those are the allocations for 2016, will end sometime in April, and the 2017s will get implemented as soon as the machines are available. And then there's Hermes and Nestor, Breezy and Lattice, and Jasper and Hungaby times. So that's nice. You can see that there's then an overlap, the new systems available times, when migration from the old legacy defunded systems to the new one can happen. Yeah, next slide, Aaron. Quick slide just about the 2018. So that's next year's stuff. So yeah, we've still got the old legacy systems, Parallel, Arsonist, Grex, and Bugaboo, and they're all aiming for March 31st of next year to get defunded. So we'll, of course, have more to say, this time next year. Next slide. Yeah. Okay. These are going to be very high level. Just a couple of slides about process, and we've got a lot of documentation out there. You can see the links to that documentation. I think it's a really, really good idea to go and have a look at this. There's quite a lot of it in the end for where to go, what you think you can do, what you can use in the interim if there are problems. I think you should have a look. So, if you're a user of a WestGrid system scheduled to be defunded, those are the 6 systems just mentioned. Yeah, you got to move. And you should move your data well in advance. And yeah, we're a little worried about having network bottlenecks, so as early as possible is good. Yeah, you might, of course, want to wait until the RAC 2017s are out. I'll have the next slide. I think Aaron mentions. Did we not have a? Oh, okay. Anyhow, that's so after defunding. Defunding for us means that Compute Canada no longer contributes to the machine, but the institutions themselves can keep these machines going. So it's up to them as to whether they think they have local users who might use it, whatever. There are no capital costs involved, or almost none. So just a quick slide here. If you think you might be able to keep going on some of these machines, for instance, if you're from U of A, you might contact that from U of C and UVic and see what the plans are for continuation of these machines. At that point, they're outside Compute Canada and WestGrid's purview, but yeah, you should ask, because as we've noted, U of A, I think, really does have some plans to keep it going, and that would be some great computing resources for U of A users. Similarly for U of C and UVic. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so I thought it would be worthwhile, just again at a pretty high level here, just talking about how to migrate. These are all links. You can get the slides as Aaron has put up. It's an opportunity to see what you don't need. It's always a good idea to go back and check your files, what you got archived. So if you don't need them, delete them. It's good to archive and compress them, of course, before moving them. If you happen to have 1 million files, it's always a good idea to tar them up into one large file. No file system that we know of handles lots and lots of small files well. So yeah, really good to archive, compress them. There are recommendations for systems, for migration recommendations. You can transfer the files, and the Globus and such are the right ways to do that. The high-speed transfer services. So have a look at that. Of course, in doubt, contact us, support@westgrid.ca, and yeah, we've written quite a lot of documentation is out there already on docs.computecanada.ca, and both Compute Canada and WestGrid documentation is continuing to be written and updated as we learn more and more about the systems. We're still, for the documentation end, a little behind the times. That's just because we don't have the new systems to actually work on. So if you really want to learn about how to submit a job on a new system, it's not up there yet. We have to figure that one out too. As soon as it does come up, we'll put it up and send out announcements about it. Again, a high level where to migrate. The key point here is that if you have a RAC 2017, and the announcement should go out next week, well, that'll tell you where to migrate. So you can start migrating if you're given a RAC 2017 on a legacy system, and that means any Compute Canada legacy systems, the big ones in the in Ontario, Quebec, etc. Well, you can migrate anytime you want. Of course, it might be good to wait until the RAC 2017s are out so that you have your allocation. But you can certainly start using those systems under the default. Cedar and Graham. Okay, if you get allocated to Cedar and Graham, well, we've got to fundamentally wait until Cedar and Graham come up, and we'll send announcements about that. If you don't have a RAC 2017, then the old default, we're calling it opportunistic use, and the rapid access service, same kind of thing. some resources are kept aside for that, and you can move to any of the new systems, any of the legacy systems, whenever you want, and you can see the instructions and such there. I just put a quick note to say that, yeah, of course you should try to choose a suitable system. Some of the systems are better for serial or for single node shared memory jobs, some for parallel, some of them have GPUs. So keep an eye on things and have a look at the details in the documentation about which systems might be suitable. And I think Aaron's going to later in our town hall will tell us a bit more about RAC. Yeah, okay. I didn't see any questions coming up in the group chat. Good at the moment. So pretty quick overview. I think next we'll let Sergey, Sergey Stepanenko, he's the site lead for Silo and University of Saskatchewan, and he and his team have been the ones doing the Silo migration. And if you remember, Silo was the machine that was actually scheduled originally for December 31st of last year. And that was because that machine has got so old that that it was even hard to get any maintenance, any support from the vendor. And Sergey and his team in the University of Saskatchewan put a huge effort into all this to manage to keep Silo going for a few months while we got some specific new storage that could be used for all that Silo. Remember, Silo's what, 3 petabytes or something. So there's a lot of, and it was full. So a lot of stuff to get moving over. So I just say congratulations to Sergey and the team there. They've done a fantastic job, and I think this will probably be the last time, Sergey, in a WestGrid town hall that that you get to talk about Silo. So over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So as it stands right now, user data migration from Silo is complete to interim storage in Waterloo and SFU. We migrated everyone that we scheduled to migrate. Everyone was notified prior to migration start and was notified upon migration complete for their corresponding queues. And we ran several sanity checks on remaining data on Silo to make sure that everybody who meant to be transferred has been transferred successfully. So on this note, I'd like to mention that we did not transfer data that we kept on Silo from 5 to 6 years ago. That belongs to users that are no longer with Compute Canada or WestGrid for a period of time larger than 2 years. So that data still remains on Silo and it will not be transferred anywhere. So as a result of migration, Waterloo received about 850 terabyte of data, and SFU received about 500 terabyte of data. As you can see from the slide, like absolute majority of the users with a very small number of files or medium size of data sets ended up in SFU, and very few users with the largest allocation ended up in Waterloo. So as we speak, there's 3 independent transfers of data occurring, and they're not originating from Silo. They're going from corresponding client file systems. So Ocean Networks Canada and CanFar, they're transferring their data to different locations that used to be on Silo, and from UFC, a large number of files is being transferred to Waterloo. I talked to that group, and it's nearly complete at this point. With all this information, considered, I think it is safe to say that we are ready to shut down the silo. So what is replacement for silo? Currently, storage that we use to keep user data migrated from silo is Interim solution. It's large capacity, but it's not really functional in the long term. So in Waterloo, it is just a cluster of NFS file systems glued together and accessible through Globus or SSH. In SFU, it's a cluster file system. It's a similar idea, different implementation, but also accessible through Globus and SSH. The major difference between silo and new storage from this point on is that silo was operating under WestGrid user base and password. New storage and every new system will operate under Compute Canada username and password. So prior to using any of new systems, it is mandatory for user to make sure that password and username is of Compute Canada, not WestGrid. In some cases, WestGrid and Compute Canada usernames are the same. In some cases, they're not. So at this point, we checked backup status of data transferred from silo to SFU and Waterloo, and it's up to date. We have at least one cycle of backups for all data transferred. And I'd like to make explicitly statement that data that backed up in SFU is the data that is located in SFU. So tape copies of the data in each site represents only data at that site. In the future, it will change, and data backed up in both locations will be replicated across. So next slide. Yeah, as I mentioned, it's Interim solution. Details of the second migration is not clear at this point because it's too early to tell. The new NDC storage will be deployed somewhere between April and June and will be ready for use. But current storage that we transfer data from silo is completely usable, and it's the capacity is adequate to accommodate for all allocations presently for 2016 and future allocations for 2017. Silo will be decommissioned between March 23rd and 31st, and it will essentially disassembling of the large number of hardware and destroying media that holds data. So as a requirement for decommission of the storage, all media, including tapes and drives, will be destroyed. So support for any requests about user data, migration, access, and so on and so forth is provided through support streams on Compute Canada and WestGrid, and basically our site provides expert advisors and support core for all requests like this. Next one. So just little statistics for backup on tape.
Sergey, I hear somebody speaking in the background. Not for you, I think somebody else. But could you make sure your mics are muted, everybody?
I think it's in the background of Sergey.
Oh, is it the background of Sergey?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not isolated from other people. So our tape library in U of S currently holds 3.5 petabyte of data, which several copies of some of the data from Plato and about 220 terabyte of data that belongs to external users. that put data on U of S tape. So from those 11 external users, we all switched them to SFU. Waterloo backup is 900 terabyte. SFU backup is 475, which is pretty much accurate for first cycle of copy for SFU, since they started copying data last. And for Waterloo, it looks like some data has one copy and some data has second cycle of backup. So effectively, all data that we transferred is backed up, and external clients, as we can see as the dynamics, will be completely backed up to new system at SFU in a couple of days.
Okay, any questions? I don't see anything coming in from email at the moment. Nothing in chat.
Yeah. No, looks good. Okay, thanks, Sergey. That's great, and it's really nice to see that transfer has actually happened. Backups are there, so yeah, this is great news, and we'll be sad to see Silo go. But at this point, then over to Aaron, our manager of projects and outreach, who will bring us up to date on things like the resource allocation process and such. Over to you, Aaron.
Thanks. Yeah, just a few updates. Starting with account renewals for your Compute Canada account, which also renews automatically all other regional accounts that users have. We're asking all users to renew their accounts by April 13th. If no action is taken, your account will automatically expire and be deactivated. It's a fairly lightweight process this year. We're not actually asking for any CCV, which was a major concern from faculty last year. So we've delayed that request, and we'll probably be asking it to happen in September. But right now, the main reason for doing this renewals is because before we get the new systems online, we want to make sure that all unrequired accounts are cleared, and it's only active users who are brought up. And also, we have a few reporting requirements for CFI that we have to deliver in June. So that's why we're going ahead with it. Just a reminder too that any accounts that are sponsored under your role must also be renewed. And if a faculty member does not renew their account and they have any sponsored roles, those accounts will also be deactivated. So just to be aware of that. There's a renewals FAQ on the Compute Canada website. You can also email renewals@ComputeCanada for more information. A note, if anyone has created an account after September 1st of 2016, you do not have to renew at this point. So if you don't get a notice, that's why. Emails have gone out to users asking them to please renew. They're being sent in batches, so don't worry if you haven't got your email yet. It's coming the next day or two. Just a little screenshot of what to expect when you go to CCDB and see this account renewal. You'll be asked to answer a few acceptance policy questions and then take it into the portion where you have to update your information. So you'll notice that any boxes that haven't been updated will be red. And once you update the information and do what's required for each box, the color will actually change to green. And that's how you know that that section is complete. And then an important last step, which is easy to miss, is you actually have to click the Request Account Renewal button to submit your account renewal. So some people miss that step. Just assume that if you checked all the other boxes that it would go through. So make sure you do that part too. Another thing that's going out next week is the 2017 Resource Allocation Competition Award Letters. So this is anyone who applied for resource allocation back in November. It's all been decided and implemented, and the letters are sent out next week. The actual date of when the new 2017 RAC Awards will take effect is to be confirmed. The hope is that we can wait until the new systems are operational and start all the racks at the same time. So we will send out another email in hopefully early April once those dates are confirmed for Cedar and Graham, and give all users with a 2017 award an actual date which the rack will be implemented. So for anyone with a 2016 rack, your priority will continue as is on your current systems until this 2017 allocations are implemented. So there shouldn't be any gap in your access to resources. So again, there's a link here to CompuCanada's website with some frequently asked questions about rack. It's divided, there's a portion specific to the actual awards and allocations. Just a little warning before users actually get your award letters. Unfortunately, although we do have some more resources with the new systems coming online, we're also losing a number of resources as legacy systems are defunded. And as you can see by the red line, the total numbers of requests that we've gotten is just, it continues to increase, and it continues to outstrip our available resources. So there are scaling again this year, and on average, we were only able to allocate 54% of the total compute requests, and only 38% of the GPU requests. Storage, for the most part, has been allocated otherwise, other than what Patrick noted about the Ceph storage. So unfortunately, you know, we're still looking to get more resources, and we apologize as we know this impacts your research, but hopefully things will get better one day. So again, just a reminder, your 2016 rack continues. Don't worry about that until 2017 starts. And then as Patrick noted about, you know, some migration concerns. And for anyone who doesn't get a 2017 rack or who did not apply, it doesn't mean that you don't have access to resources. So the resource allocation competition allocates approximately 80% of the resources to the certain projects, but there's still about 20% that are unallocated and available to any user. So this can be gained through the rapid access service on Cedar and Graham, which will be available once those systems are up and running, and what we refer to as opportunistic use of any of the regional legacy systems. And there's, of course, also out-of-round requests if there's any new faculty member who's come into a new site or a new project has been awarded or funding. So there's information on the website about that. Another national update is CompuCanada has launched its annual Staff Awards of Excellence. So this is for any advanced research computing staff in any region across Canada who maybe has gone above and beyond to support you in your research. We want to nominate an individual or a team and just recognize some of the work that's being done to support research. So submissions are due April 21st, and you can submit that online on the CompuCanada website there. And the annual High Performance Computing Symposium is happening this year in Kingston, Ontario, June 6th to 9th. Registration is now open, and the early bird rate of $225 ends April 30th. There's also some hotel blocks which are available until early May, and some submissions for papers and posters, as well as a data visualization showcase. I don't know if Alex wanted to say anything about the visualization showcase. I saw you pop on.
Sure, yes. So we already opened submissions to the showcase. Everybody who has some beautiful visualizations or just want to show their research, please go to the website. So the website is hbcs, 2017.hbcs.ca. And somewhere at the bottom, there is a link to the visualization showcase submission form. So this is your chance to showcase your visualizations. If you don't go to HBCS, for example, then feel free to submit your visualizations, and we'll be happy to showcase them.
And just finally, a couple of updates on the training sessions that WestGrid is hosting in the coming months. So we have some online sessions, March 29th. It is the Using ParaView Web for 3D Visualization. That will be a webinar, so you just can connect online. There is an in-person session at the University of Calgary for the data visualization, May 4th. And then there's some great bioinformatics, genomics, life sciences series online webinars that are being developed right now that will happen the week of June 5th to 15th. That will also be online, and more information will be coming soon. And we have 2 new WestGrid summer schools that Alex is also helping coordinate. One is at UBC, June 19th to 22nd, and the other one is in at the University of Saskatchewan, July 24th to 27th. Alex, I don't know if you want to mention these briefly.
Sure. So we are currently putting together a program for these. They will be advertised sometime in April, probably first half of April, and there will be lots of sessions. So we are aiming to have not only the traditional MPI OpenMP sessions in CUDA, but also a number of domain-specific sessions. So people doing molecular dynamics and quantum chemistry and material science and other things will have a lot of interesting sessions. So keep an eye on that.
Thanks, Alex. Okay, that's all from us. Again, contact us at any time. There's support at westgrid.ca. There's our website, and then there's the docs, CompuCanada wiki with all the new information for the new sites. Any questions, feel free to submit via email or in the chat window, or unmute yourself, or contact us anytime.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Okay, looks good. Indeed, give us a call if there's any issues or concerns that you've got, and yeah, we'll try to answer as quick as we can. And yeah, it's looking like it's going to be fun next couple of months. Okay, thanks everybody.